Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and what a fantastic opportunity to be here today. And I've been so inspired already with so many amazing presentations we've seen, and the day's only 2/3 of the way over. I'm here to talk about how I threw away my camera and became a filmmaker, and I understand that that comment in itself is laced with irony. But to help sort of seed my presentation today, I just want to play you a 40-second clip from one of the films that I created in 2008. Oh, nice, short and sweet. Here we go. Thank you. So what I'm hoping to do today with everyone here, and it is such an inspiring day, is if I can try and rub off onto everyone in the audience today to dream big with little resources. And I'm going to use a few, hopefully some really, really succinct examples of how that's worked for me in my career as a filmmaker and a storyteller, but also how other people within my own industry are using this same thinking pattern to create what they do. In fact, I'm going to start with some really, really simple ingredients to creative thinking. And as an example, I'm going to kick off with Star Wars, the Star Wars trilogy. Lucasfilm, a man who's responsible for creating so many fantastic, big-budget Hollywood blockbusters. And if you think about it, he's got so much at his disposal to create what he does. But have a guess, or put your hand up if you think you know how he made the sound effect for a land speeder. Anybody know? Excellent. All right. Picture this. LA traffic played through a vacuum cleaner hose. Even George Lucas is relying on some low-tech ideas and creativity to solve some big creative problems. So next time I want you to get that video out and have a listen and think about that idea. Another legendary example of fantastically simple, pure creative thinking distilled to a very, very minimal level is when the producers of the movie Alien went to Hollywood to pitch their film. Now, I've had the pleasure of going to Hollywood twice. Whether you call it a pleasure or not, I don't really know yet. But you know, pitching in Hollywood is a very, very difficult process. And usually when people such as myself go there, we surround ourselves with reams and reams of things to put on the table and try and impress, and lots of marketing material and whatnot. The lesson I learned from that process was to reinvent that, because the producers behind the first Alien movie went to Hollywood and they said 3 words. They sat down in this big boardroom meeting and they said just 3 words: Jaws in space. And believe it or not, we laugh about it now, but those 3 words had them 1 check signed and handed across the table. Because straight away what they did was they connected with their audience, which happened to be the people sitting in the boardroom table. And these guys could understand. I understand the movie Jaws. I know what a hit that was. I can imagine the context of it being in space. And straight away it identified the broader audience for that film. So it teaches us as storytellers and communicators the power of simple language and simple solutions. Now I'm going to try and confuse you. This is a little bit of a funny, strange sort of storyboard, a little bit about my life, because I think it's a real weird, wacky past I've had, and unless you understand some of it, you won't understand my thinking now. But so my name's Jason Van Genderen. I've obviously got Dutch heritage. I was born in Australia to 2 lovely Dutch parents, and I've got a sister as well. And at the age 3, they decided, when I was 3 years old, they decided we're going to go and move over to Holland for a few years just to test out living over there as a family. And so from the age of 3 to 7, I turned into a little Dutch boy, and I handed in my thongs and I had a pair of clogs. And I learnt a whole new life over there. and came back when I was 7, and of course had to reconnect with my culture again. I all of a sudden had to re-identify as an Australian and relearn the language, but of course as a kid that's nice and easy to do, you're quite flexible. But the reason the pet rock is there is I was always looking for something harebrained, creative and weird and wacky to do with my spare time. So I decided to start making pet rocks, and I thought that that was a really cool thing to do somehow. And what's worse, I started selling them at the local reserve on a weekend for 50 cents and actually did okay. In fact, I made just enough to go and buy some ice creams from the local Mr. Whippy van driver in our street, which got me thinking, because pet rocks could only sustain so many ice creams. And my appetite for ice cream started to increase with age. My pet rock love started to decline just a little bit. So I thought, well, he needs to have his van washed every week. So I approached him, and lo and behold, every Tuesday afternoon after school, I'd rock up there, and for $2.50, I got to wash the van. And I could buy more ice creams. And it was a lot simpler than selling pet rocks. But then I thought, well, you know what? The little miniature entrepreneur in me just said, well, there's got to be something else to this. So I went in with a proposal. My first business proposal I delivered to the ice cream van operator living in my street. And I said to him, look, what would it be worth to you if I could tell you or share with you from my local school, every time they plan a school excursion, if I could tell you where that was going to be? What's that worth to you? The answer to that question is $5 for every excursion, in case you're interested. And I earned a lot of friends along the way. Now, having said that, I was also a little bit special. In that by the age of 11 going on 12, I ended up in hospital with not 1, not 2, but 3 back conditions, if you can call it. What happened was I slipped the disc in my spine, so I ended up in hospital in traction. While I was there, I was also diagnosed with scoliosis, which is that curvature of the spine you see sort of there. And then the other thing I had was Scheuermann's disease, which put very, very simply is a very painful condition where bone keeps on building onto your vertebrae and pinches all your nerves. So how unlucky was I? 3 bone disorders in the one visit. But that meant, as I was a little bit special, that for the next 9 years on and off, this was my next best friend. I came out of that hospital and I was strapped into a Boston back brace for all those early formative years in my childhood. Now, a lot of us can look upon that as a negative experience, and believe you me, it was a hell of a challenge as a kid to have that strapped to you every single day of your life. But what it did for me also was it kind of segregated me in my school. I grew up in a very sports-focused school, and I was not able to participate in any of the team activities, any of the sports, the PE sessions, all those sorts of things, all those crazy things where as kids we bond and communicate and form our friends. I turned into that little geeky kid that ended up being sent to the library or go to the dark room, go and work on the school yearbook. You know what? So I started finding other ways to occupy my time. When all the other kids were out there enjoying the fresh air, I isolated myself into a little silo and started working on creative things. And the one thing I did know is I loved drawing. I absolutely loved drawing, doodling, cartooning, you name it. That was just what I loved doing. I'd moved on from pet rocks, remember. I was now drawing pet rocks. In fact, by the age of 13, I went to my local newspaper, the Morisset Courier, and I approached the editor, Phil Collins, and I said, Mr. Collins, when I was 13, I would love to do a comic strip for your newspaper. And everyone was saying to me, you're not going to do that, that's what adults go and study for, and you're 13, you kid, go back home. Anyway, my cartoon strip, Snail Lingo, ended up being published within that paper every single week for about 8 months. As a 13-year-old, $25 a week. Yes! Moved on again for those $5 ice cream vans. So that then started within me this seed of, inspiration of what can I do with my creative skills that I can't, if I can't do anything with my body and I was sort of trapped within this frame, what could I do with my mind and the skills that I did have? What were the possibilities? Well, by age 14, I had my first Christmas card published. It was around the whole start of the Australiana Christmas card sort of era. I got right in on the wave of that. And as a 14-and-a-half-year-old, I had my first card range with Hallmark cards, Christmas cards. And this is not by any means bragging, but can you imagine as a 14-year-old having a bank balance of $9,000 at the end of that year? And I didn't even have a car to spend it on yet. Anyway, the following year I had a card range with John Sands, and I moved on. I kept creating and creating. Now, something went a little bit strange when I was sort of 16, because I started designing long-stitch tapestry kits and cross-stitch kits for a needlecraft company and a bit of T-shirt art. I don't know. Let's just put the one behind me. But somewhere in your house, or somewhere in your nan's house, there's one of my pieces of art hanging in a dusty corner. I can guarantee you. No, really. Then I sort of went through school, I got out of school, and I went looking for a job. And I loved commercial art. I really wanted to enter that world. And my fortune was meeting a wonderful creative mentor and Newcastle legend by the name of Art Ryan. And he had a fantastic little advertising agency, and he took me on board. And the wonderful thing was, I became a fully rounded creative. I wasn't just drawing, I wasn't just cutting up things on the pasteboard and making nice presentations. I was doing all these things. I was learning and exercising all these different creative disciplines, and Art taught me all this stuff, and I'm forever indebted to him for this. In fact, he couldn't get rid of me for 13 years. My first job, and I stayed there for 13 years. So my career background is very much seated in Newcastle. I lived in Derby Street for all that time, or every day lived in Derby Street working away. The other thing that really helped shape my filmic career was a Newcastle born and bred film festival called the Shootout. And some of you might fondly remember this fest. I don't think it's been running for the last couple of years, but honestly, it's one of the most ingenious film fests I've ever seen anywhere around the world. And what they basically do is they try and get everyone from professionals to rank amateurs to families to you name it. If you've got a camera, come into town and you've got 24 hours to make a film completely in camera. So you get a 24-hour window, you have to shoot everything in sequence, and you can add sound and add some music and stuff afterwards, but you can't edit that film on a computer or anything. So that taught me everything I really wanted to know about filmmaking, because it taught me to be very disciplined in my craft, and I had to think things through before I started making something. And it was funny, we were fortunate enough to win a couple of times, and in 2005 we made our very first claymation film. We'd never tried it before. We thought we're going to come into town, and we gutted a hotel room at the Clarendon. We took all the furniture out, and then we moved our we started building our set, and we put our camera in there, and over the course of 20 hours, we made a 3.5-minute short claymation film, our first ever. And it ended up winning. It was really a joyous thing. But I had a laugh, because the following week I was quoted as a claymation expert. The first time I'd picked up a ball of plasticine. It was awesome. So now I'm going to just talk a little bit about creativity versus craft, because it's a very important topic and very close to my heart. What is creativity? Well, it's organic. It's uncontained. It's spontaneous and fun, and there's no templates, there's no rules. It's something truly your own. Then we balance that against craft, and craft is can be very disciplined. It's quite skills-based. It's a learned experience, and it's quite process-related. For me, though, creativity wins out every single time. I need to have elements of craft and creativity in the work that I do as a short filmmaker. But creativity is my passion, because it bends and breaks conventional thinking. I love blowing those rules out of the water and finding my own way of doing something. But you have to understand the rules first, apparently, so I'm told. Another great slide I love to refer to is creativity is allowing yourself to make mistakes. Art is knowing which ones to keep. It's a very true thing if you think about it. Which leads me to my other favourite word. Hand up if serendipity is one of your favourite words. Thank you. It's a magic word, because to me and in filmmaking it leads to what I call happy accidents. It's the beautiful process of discovering, when I go and make a film, about that journey that educates me in the story that I'm creating. And in 2008 I set myself a challenge. I said, I tell you what, can I make a film where content rules over the craft? Where the message that I'm making I can make with no rules, I can create it organically. In fact, I don't even want to have a script. I didn't start with a script, no storyboard, no actors, no props, no narration, no budget. I didn't even have a flashy camera. This was my camera. Yeah. Oh, sorry, for those of you having a little trouble seeing, a Nokia. Unsponsored, I can guarantee you. And the film that I played to you at the very start of this presentation was shot on that little mobile phone back in 2008. It was called Mankind is No Island. And you can see it on YouTube after today's presentation. And it taught me so much about filmmaking, because we went out and we just filmed words on signs around city streets. And then we very organically put together this story about our sense of disconnect with homeless communities living in the streets. And our goal was, can we get this into a major film fest internationally? So we tried Tropfest New York. And fortunately for me, we got the phone call from John Paulson in 2008 to say, hey, you're one of 8 finalists in Tropfest New York, congratulations. And that was our goal, was just to get into a major film fest with this mobile phone film. First time for Tropfest that they'd ever taken in a mobile phone entry. Not only that, we went across for Tropfest New York and we won. And we won Best Film, but we also won People's Choice. And it was the first time in Trop history that the one film actually scored both main prizes. A little embarrassing, but it was nice. It started a bit of a media storm. Oh, thank you. It started a great little media storm in New York and back home in Australia about, what are these guys doing with mobile phones? Can you actually make films on them? What are you talking about? It's rather strange because we won another swag of awards, including an IF award back in 2009 for the very same film. And it started teaching us as much about our craft as what other people were starting to sort of get switched on about. And I got branded a pocket filmmaker. And initially I didn't like that because I thought, hey, I want to be a serious filmmaker. I don't want to be, what's this pocket filmmaking bizzo? I can use all sorts of cameras. And then I grew to love it because I thought, well, I can be a serious filmmaker and still film on small devices. I mean, there's no limitation to me. I can make a story on that. And in fact, as soon as I turned my own ideas around on this, I ended up being invited to go and address film festivals and schools all around the world. I've done so many talks in Australia. I flew out to Aspen, Colorado to address their film fest about portable filmmaking. I addressed 60 of Taiwan's latest and greatest TV content creators and film producers on the joys of portable filmmaking. And just recently this year I was at the Edinburgh Film Fest doing exactly the same. And it's such a pleasure to stand there and actually watch people's minds open up, these particularly film people that have just been used to letting themselves be surrounded by this very overly produced, productive craft environment and not thinking about the most simple ingredients we can actually even use to tell stories with. So unashamedly, I'm a lover of low-tech. And I will never shy away from it. For me, if I can find a low-tech solution to a high-concept problem, it'll win out for every single time for me because it's just a beautiful, simple, organic process to get into for creative storytelling. Some other stories I've been involved in this is my first pocket feature film I'm working on at the moment called Me and Megan. And my partner Megan, who's sitting up there in the audience today, she went to Ethiopia last year for 9 months to volunteer for an NGO. And we ended up diarising our lives in these little pocket cameras. Every single day we had these little video diaries. So mid-next year we'll be releasing this little film, a feature documentary about how our lives move through that process. One criticism I do hear from people when I talk about portable filmmaking is to say, but the lenses are so small. You can't really get a nice sexy picture out of these things. This is what I'm working on now. This is what I'm shooting on now. It's an iPhone and you can adapt digital SLR lenses onto the front of it. It looks awesome when you've got it in your hand. It really feels very powerful. Maybe not so much a pocket film, but it starts as a pocket film. And then you bolt that on. But anyway, look, it's a fantastic process and you get beautiful depth of field and wonderful, wonderful pictures. So what I want to leave you with today is the power of a simple idea. And the beautiful thing about ideas is they are amazing and awesome and they can be completely free. They don't need to cost you a cent. An idea is something out there in the ether that you just have to be open and receptive to coming into you. You don't need any qualifications to have a fantastic idea. It's unrestricted. You can have an idea about anything. It doesn't really have to be a film. It can be any particular profession or hobby that you apply it to. And it can be life-changing. For me, it certainly was life-changing because I tore down some barriers in my own life and started embracing the things I could do rather than things I couldn't do. So in that sense, I guess you can say I really did throw away my camera and I became a filmmaker. But I'm going to close. I'm going to finish off with a little exercise I want you to do. Without hitting the person in front of you, you just want to stretch out your arms in front, right? Shake them nice and loose, okay? Slap one hand up here and the other one on the other side. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Now, within your very own hands here, you've got a powerful and perfect and immaculate ideas incubator in your hands. Use it, please. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you very much for your time.